Sure.
Okay, thank you, Gayatri. Can you please introduce yourself? Tell me about your qualifications. Why are you interested in pharmacovigilance? What do you feel is your reason for pursuing this career in pharmacovigilance?
Sure, sir. First, to start with who I am, I'm Dr. Gayatri Menon. I've just started with I'm halfway through my internship after my BDS. So I'm basically a dentist and I'm going for my consultations as well, side by side with my internship. And what attracted me to pharmacovigilance is actually a long story with a little personal side to it, as well as interest to it. Besides practicing and a world with patients, I'd also like to venture a little into the corporate world. And my dad, he works for Novartis. So growing up itself, I've seen a lot about how pharma firms work, how things go about it. So it's always been interesting when he shares things about what happens around in his company, how does his regulatory work, how everything works around. So it's been very interesting to me from the beginning itself, from the start itself. So since I got to know that people who have a background in life sciences can also venture into this, so I was very happy because it's something which interests me and I've also been qualified for it. So both at the same time, it came as a really good news for me. So that's why I'd like to venture into pharmacovigilance. And of course, I think it's a great return we're doing to the society as well. It's not just about releasing drugs and releasing medicines and releasing new products. We also need to know about how it's affecting people. If it's because as far as I know, around the third most common reason for deaths in UK was drug adverse events. So being able to be a part of controlling that, I think it's a great honor and it's a great thing. So that's why I'd like to venture into
Right.
pharmacovigilance.
Very good. Very good. I am really pleased to hear your interest in pharmacovigilance. Again, what do you feel is the purpose behind collecting all these events, reactions? How would they help? So, if we are reporting them to the authority, what is the benefit of reporting them? How will it be
Okay.
useful?
Okay. So I think since in clinical trial phase, it's been conducted on a very limited number of people. So we can't really be sure about how it will affect a mass population unless and until the post-marketing surveillance happens. And that is what this is all about. So unless and until we collect reports after it's released, we don't really get a clear picture about how it's affecting people. There can also be a case like if the adverse event occurs in 1 out of a lakh or 10 lakh people, that goes unseen in the clinical trial phase. That can only be seen in collecting reports after the marketing. That's post-marketing surveillance. So it's important to know everything that happens to the drug. I mean, it's not just about how it affects a few thousands of people. It's all about how it affects an entire population. Every life matters. Every human matters. Every person has a family of his own, a whole life of his own. So nothing should go wrong because of the drug we administer. So it's very important to know about the effects and collecting reports
Mm.
afterwards.
Mm. Yes, yes. And more than that, does it also have any implications on the image of the company, on the financial aspects in some way, with these stricter regulations around and authorities now being very vigilant about reactions with past experiences of, tragedy of thalidomide or
Sure,
sulfanilamide
sir.
tragedy? Yeah.
Yes,
So,
sir. I totally agree with you.
what kind of financial implications can they have? If I do not do pharmacovigilance, how will it impact my finances, or can it have a bearing on my uh, sales? Anything
Yes,
that you
sir.
think?
Yes, sir. To quote an example, there was a very recent drug which was released by Novartis itself. I can't really recall the exact name. I'm
Mhm.
really sorry about that. That drug
Okay.
was withdrawn from the market after they conducted their own clinical trial after the marketing. It was doing well in the market, it was doing fine in the market, but then they conducted a clinical trial after this to prove that this is a very effective drug. But then, as a result of that, they had to withdraw the drug. This is a negative impact, but if it was happening in the positive sense, post marketing surveillance can actually prove the benefit risk ratio, which is a very important aspect. So that once the regulatory authorities and all are convinced about the positives of the drug and the benefit risk ratio, that it's more beneficial than the amount of risk it causes, it can financially boost the drug. It can
It
boost
can,
the
and
market of the drug,
it
which
can
can
also, can
indirectly.
it also, have you heard of the legal cases or the litigation cases which are done by the consumers? Any
Yes,
legal
sir,
cases which
suing
are there?
the.
Yeah, lawsuits.
So nothing I can recall of right now.
Okay, so there are a lot of lawsuits which have been filed. I think we've covered this in our initial introduction part
Yes, sir,
in the
but I can't
sessions.
recall of an
You
example. Yes, sir.
can go through and brush them up. Again,
Sure, sir.
what is important in these is, uh, like I said, pharmacovigilance. Many of these drugs had caused deaths, right? Like you were saying.
Hmm.
So when they
Mm-hmm.
started to market, rofecoxib is one of those examples you would have heard.
Right, sir.
Pain, COX-2 inhibitor. Again, this was noted to cause deaths, and suddenly Merck had to recall their product. Because of that, their market fell sharply. Because of the
Hmm.
recall, their image
Right,
was
sir.
spoiled, reputation spoiled. Not just that product, it spoils the other products also.
Yes,
Because
sir. The
when,
entire.
as a consumer, you can also understand if you are buying a product from a company and you get to know their products are being recalled because of
Hmm.
safety, then you may be wary of the other products also and think, okay, I should not take these or not buy these, right? So it also
Yes, sir.
adversely
Trust issues.
affects their sales, right? So this is one of
Yes,
the
sir.
reasons. Very good. Now, when I was saying pharmacovigilance, so why do we call it as a science? Is it something to do with some experiments that we do? What are we doing with medicine that we call it a science? Why is pharmacovigilance a science?
Okay, pharmacovigilance, the name itself is derived from pharmaco, which is medicinal, and vigilance, which is to keep a close watch of, vigilant, alert, all of that. So, as WHO has defined pharmacovigilance, and as Sir mentioned, it's science and activities relating to the assessment. Um,
Detection, assessment.
Yes, sir. Assessment, understanding, detection, and analysis of the adverse
Yes,
events of drugs.
yes.
So, since we look into the technical side of the drugs, we can define it
Hmm.
as a science.
Hmm. So our overall objective is to prevent disease, to prevent any
Prevent
reactions,
any
yeah,
adverse or
any
any.
adverse drug reactions.
Yes,
And
sir.
so the intent of doing this is by collecting evidence. So our science is science because it is evidence based, right?
Okay, sir.
Science is always evidence based. We
Yes,
don't
sir.
believe in anything without having an evidence to it. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
True, sir.
so and
Right.
we have a hypothesis whenever we do a causal relationship, whenever we do a assessment of a relationship of a drug and an event, we hypothesize that it may be because there is a positive D challenge, there is a positive re challenge. Yes, there are
Right,
no
sir.
other underlying disease conditions. So we are meeting a lot of criterias to come up to a conclusion. Yes. Okay.
Right,
That is
sir.
why we always say pharmacovigilance
It's a
is a
science.
science. Right?
Right, sir.
Clear on the concept. Right. Now,
Yes,
what
sir.
is the
Thank you.
difference when I say between reaction, adverse reaction, and an event?
Okay, actually, when you see it as a whole picture, adverse drug reaction can be said to be a subset of adverse drug event. Adverse drug event is any untoward medical condition or medical proceeding which happens to the patient, which can be or cannot be related to the suspected drug. The causality is in question in that case. But in the case of adverse drug reaction, we know it for sure that the noxious effect is definitely due to the drug administered of the suspected drug. So any adverse drug reaction is an adverse drug event, but every adverse drug event is not an adverse drug reaction.
Right. Very good. Okay. So, what are the other examples that you can think of? Say, a event, just a very common example. Anything that comes to your mind for a event?
Okay, any accident a person undergoes, meets
A
with
road
an, if a
accident.
person meets with an accident that may not be related to the drug, because accidents can happen, it can be a road accident. It's nowhere related to the drug, but it results in death of the patient. So it's an adverse event, but it's not an adverse drug reaction.
Hmm. Because the causality cannot be ascertained. Okay.
Yes.
Again, I give you a scenario. Suppose I was taking a medicine uh, and antibiotic, and suddenly it caused a lot of hair loss for me. And I've been losing hairs. I took the medication for 4 days. Right. I was earlier on a therapy of minoxidil. I've had some issues in the past for hair loss, but now that I am taking this antibiotic, my hair loss has increased. And when I stopped to take the medicine, my hair loss improved. It didn't happen. It stopped. Okay. And then I went to my doctor. I told him that I am taking this medicine, antibiotic, but it's actually causing hair loss. So he said, I'll give you another medication. And I did not take that medicine again. Okay. Now, will it be a related event or an unrelated event?
From the context I've just heard, I think, sir, it's a related event.
Hmm. And what are your reasons for thinking that?
So, because if the patient previously has a therapy of minoxidil, and minoxidil is a drug given for alopecia, hair loss.
Hmm.
So, in that case, it had shown an improvement. The decline in the improvement was shown on administration of this drug, which is clear cut. And to add more to it, uh, it could have been a climatic change or anything else as well. But to add as an evidence that it is related, on
Could it be a
stopping the drug,
progression of the
it
disease condition, Gayatri? Could it have been the progression of the disease?
right, sir. But then on stopping the drug, the
Yeah.
condition improved, right?
Yeah, so that is what I was trying to ask you. Okay,
Okay,
so what
sir.
do we call that? Stopping of the drug, the condition improving,
Withdrawal.
challenge? Is it a challenge?
Okay,
Is it a de-challenge? Is it a re-challenge? What is it?
sir, I can't recall. I'm sorry.
Okay, challenge is when you introduce a medicine. De-challenge is
Okay,
when you stop a medicine.
withdraw.
Re-challenge
Okay,
is when you again introduce the medicine. So now you tell me,
okay,
what
sir.
is this scenario? Is it a de-challenge or a
D challenge.
re-challenge?
It
Yeah.
was a D challenge.
It was a D challenge because when I stopped the medication, the event stopped. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So,
Excuse, sir. I think you're on mute. I can't hear you.
okay. So I was saying, yeah, I could hear you now.
Okay, sir.
I think the D challenge is clear to you, right? Now the concept is very
Yes,
clear
sir.
to
Yes,
me,
sir.
right? And
Yes, thank you.
expeditedness, again, what cases do we expedite to the authority?
So,
On priority, which cases are sent to the authority? We call it as expedited reports. Okay. So
okay,
there are,
the regulate.
yeah, yeah, you go ahead.
If I'm right, there are three types of cases on which, with a different timeline. 7 days for life-threatening or death, fatal cases.
Hmm.
30 days for serious cases, and 90 days for non-serious cases. This is the regulatory timeline given.
You said fatal, life-threatening. How many days?
7 days.
7 days. It's in case of trial, is it?
So
Is it in case of clinical trial reports, or is it for any kind of report?
it's for regulate. It's a regulatory timeline. So it's in our
Again,
pharmacovigilance. It's yes, sir.
it is a regulatory timeline, but for marketed or trial products, 7 days,
Market,
7 calendar days,
marketed,
7 calendar days,
marketed.
fatal life-threatening event.
Yes, sir.
Which timeline is it?
Marketed products regulatory timeline.
No, it is a trial product regulatory
Okay.
timeline. Okay.
Okay.
In clinical trials, you are required to report fatal life threatening events in 7 calendar days. For all other
Okay.
reports, okay, which are not fatal and life threatening. So, what are other serious reports which are not fatal life threatening?
Which
Seriousness criteria.
requires hospitalization,
Hmm.
which is congenital, which induces congenital deformities, which
Congenital
can lead
anomaly. Yeah.
to disability in the patient,
Yes.
or which can require a medical intervention or surgical intervention.
Hmm. Yeah, so these are there, and you also have medically significant and important medical events IME list published by EMA.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
And the 6 conditions. Yes, sir.
yeah. So those 6 conditions are serious, and the first two, that is fatal life threatening, in trials are required to be reported in 7 calendar days. Again, you need to meet the Susar criteria in Europe and US. So, what does Susar stand for?
Suspected, unexpected, serious adverse reaction.
Yes. So, that means there are 3 criteria to be met. One is suspected test, it has to have a relationship, causal relationship. Okay. The other one is unexpected. That means it was
Yes.
not known earlier, either in terms of occurrence or in terms of nature, severity, frequency. Yes. And then you have, after this,
Serious
the
adverse.
other criteria is,
It should
yeah,
be serious
uh,
event.
so seriousness. And seriousness we have discussed. Again, fatal life threatening, 7 calendar days. For all other serious events, it is 15.
Okay,
Right?
sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I'm
And
really sorry about this
it's okay. And in
errors that
marketed
I'm
products,
making.
yeah, yeah. And in marketed products, it is 15 calendar days because these are not solicited by the company. These are not by a sponsor. They are given voluntarily. So you get 15
Okay.
calendar days. Okay. And there is no differentiation in fatal, life threatening, any other seriousness. So they are just saying, and there is an implied causality, remember, in marketed products. Because if a reporter comes to you and says, I took your medicine and I had a reaction, why will he come to you unless he is doubting your drug? That means there is some relation. Yeah. So in
Yes.
marketed cases, implied causality is always there. We do perform the assessment, but the reporter causality is always taking a precedence. Yeah,
Okay, sir.
which is related. They are saying that it is related. Unless proven, we cannot call it as unrelated. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. Now, trials and marketed products. We have covered these. Right. Expedited reports. What are aggregate reports?
Sir, I'm not very sure. So what happened is, I was
Okay.
actually I've been attending classes regularly since the past 2 weeks
No.
because I was practicing back in India and I traveled here because I couldn't cope up both together. I
No
traveled to
problem.
Dubai. Now I'm on leave, so now I'm
Okay.
catching up on everything.
No
So
problem.
I'm really sorry for the
Again,
mistake.
aggregate reports or periodic reports are one and the same. So they are done over a
Okay,
period of time.
periodic reports.
Yeah. So
Yes, sir.
periodic
I remember.
reports, what we call PBRER. What is PBRER? Periodic benefit risk evaluation report.
Reports.
Okay. So brush up on these concepts of
Yes, sir.
PBRER, PSUR, DSUR, again, DSUR will be for trial products.
Trial
Okay.
product, and the other
Yeah.
one for
And for marketed
PSUR.
products, you have these PSUR, PADER, and DSUR. Sorry, and PBRER. Okay. So those will be required to be again looked at. And otherwise, I think you are doing quite well. So keep reading your content.
Yes.
I would again wish you all the best for your future
Thank you,
endeavors,
sir.
and
Thank you so
we'll
much.
connect again after this. But for now, keep reading these concepts on the reporting, because they will be
Sure, sir.
definitely asked, right? The timelines
Yes,
for
sir.
reporting, the timelines for again
Mm-hmm.
PSURs, so all that will be required, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so
Okay,
much,
that's it
sir.
for
Thank
now.
you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, thank you, bye.
Bye.